What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunched Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder. Deontay Wilder said this in his recent 78 Sports TV interview. Shout out to him. He said a lot in this interview, but I've already covered one part of it, the cons. Now let me talk about the pros, okay? This is what Deontay Wilder had to say. Surprisingly, he said American heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder on his comeback, he says boxing dies without his excitement. Okay. Let me counterpunch. I think he's half right or partial right. I don't think that's accurate on what he's saying. I don't believe that as far as boxing dies. No. Boxing doesn't die without Deontay Wilder. Heavyweight boxing is dying without Deontay Wilder. That's a difference. Because he's only in one weight class. Okay, he's not a middleweight. He's not a super middleweight. He's not a light heavyweight. He's not a cruiserweight. He's not a fucking welterweight. He's a heavyweight. Okay? So maybe he meant to say that because he did say sometimes I get excited, so I stumble over my words. We all do that. I do that. That's no shame in that, but say it right. Explain something that doesn't have to be understood. No, you do have to explain certain shit because when people read that, like, boxing dies without me, that's some Mayweather type mentality like shit. You know how he hates him. For thinking that. But him saying that boxing dies without Deontay Wilder, no. He could even say maybe American boxing dies without Deontay Wilder. That would be closer than boxing in general. Because you have people all over the world. Boxing is a world sport. And I think people get a tunnel vision like conceited, arrogant mindset when it comes to Americans in boxing. They do that shit. Floyd did it. Floyd thought all I have to do is go to Vegas because Floyd knew all I have to do to go to Vegas and make millions of dollars and be right in Vegas because I am Vegas. He had a niche though. Floyd had a niche though. Wilder made his by fighting one of the best heavyweights around. That proved that he was one of the best around. That proved that he was better than him. But Deontay Wilder still battled him to the end. That's what gave people that newfound respect about Wilder because he didn't give up. He didn't quit. He didn't fold up like a bitch. He didn't do any of those things that a lot of people probably would have done. If they would have been knocked down that many times, they wouldn't have got back up that many times. They would have stayed there and waited for that ref to count their ass out. Okay? But to say, oh, well, man, boxing dies without me. No. Heavyweight boxing does. American boxing could. Because think about it, without Tank and Errol Spence, who do you really have? Crawford? Who do you really have? I mean, but you still have potential fights with those particular guys. If it wasn't for the politics of them, we still would have those fights. But politics are going to eat the sport of boxing alive anyway. It's always has for the last 10, 15 years. So that's that. That's nothing you're going to get around. But him saying, hey, boxing dies without me. No, stop it. Knock it off. That ain't that crucial. Okay, boxing is still going on to this day. We still have Canelo. We still have Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. We got to still have old ass Gennady Golovkin running around. So like we still have boxing. Boxing didn't stop when he left. Boxing didn't stop before he came. Now, was heavyweight boxing suffering? Yes, heavyweight boxing was. Not boxing in general. What we did, we looked and focused on fights that we wanted to see. Maypac. I mean, this is before Wilder, mind you, before the rise of Wilder. Wilder was fighting at the time, but he wasn't he wasn't anybody that we knew. All right. So we have to call it how we see it. And that's how it was. But I will tell you this. The problem with Wilder is when you start giving him too much praise, when you start giving him too much attention, when you start giving him too many accolades, when you start doing so many things for Wilder, Wilder starts getting this mindset. See, once again, we're starting to see the arrogance, okay, that seeps in when someone praises someone so much. That's what happens when you start praising men. That damn statue, I don't even think, if it wasn't for the statue, he might not even be considering coming back to the sport of boxing. Which I hope he does, because I'm interested to see what he can still do without fighting the same damn man 3 times. I still want to see what he's capable of doing. I still want to see if he can land that right hand and drop somebody, and then knock him out and this, that, and the other. I want to see that because I'm curious. I want to see what he can do, because one monkey don't stop a show. That's why. Because just because he got beat by one guy 2 times in a draw doesn't mean that he's done for good. And if he did leave the sport of boxing and stayed gone, well, that would have showed you that one man retired you. That's all I see. So if he comes back, he proves me wrong and everybody else wrong. That's a great thing. See, people that doubt you don't mean they hate you, but in his mind they do, because that's the mind of a fucking arrogant person. An arrogant person says, if you say anything and you doubt me in any type of way, you hate me therefore, and you're everything else. And I'm going to bring all this other bullshit that has nothing to do with boxing into it. Prejudice, racism, right? Biasness, tribalism, a lot of that shit. Well, tribalism is with boxing, but all that other shit, you could throw that out of the window. But it comes with it. Okay, because of the fan base, because of the people that follow him. Half of them are a bunch of people that don't really like fighters that don't look like them anyway. Let's just be real. That's like if David Duke liked fucking boxing and all he could do is talk about who's a white fighter this day? Ricky Hatton. Not even Ricky Hatton, he's from Britain. Let's just say that. Well, he could say that because he's a white guy. He could say that. Oh, you know what? I like Ricky Hatton. He's smart. He has everything else these other fighters don't have. You know what I mean? Kelly Pavlik. So let's say he talked about Kelly Pavlik, and then that's all he talked about. You would say, okay, this motherfucker's a racist. You know what I mean? That's the only reason he liked Kelly Pavlik, because he's a racist. Oh, Bernard Hopkins cheated him because Bernard Hopkins beat him and Bernard Hopkins black. You see what I'm saying? So you those would be the only way. Now, if you flip it, this is what we have. See, Tyson Fury was a racist. He was a cheat. He was a drug cheat. He was a liar. He was everything else besides a boxer. Okay, so I'm glad that saga was over. But guess what? Life goes on. But see, they gave him that statue. Well, they didn't give him anything because that statue has been created. So I'll give you guys a history lesson. I don't know what caused him to do it, but he is appreciative that it was happening. He was emotional. Who wouldn't be? But at the same time, it's like, if that statue brought him onto the mindset of saying, hey, boxing dies without me because they gave me a statue, that's what I'm talking about. That proves my point. Boxing doesn't die without Deontay Wilder. Heavyweight boxing possibly does. A portion of it does. But boxing overall, no. American boxing would be suffering. We need an American heavyweight champ. You know, and I don't really see any very good prospects, or especially any exciting ones like Deontay Wilder. You know, we got to keep it a buck. But him saying boxing dies without me, man, that's too much. And it just shows you why you shouldn't praise someone too much, because shit could go to the head, like I just read. Bars. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Deontay Wilder claiming that boxing dies without him and his return. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunched. Peace.